so that gives us a time period now. And this is what I've been kind of isolating down, like when will crypto finally bottom out? So it looks like 6 months from about a week or two ago when FTX really started to collapse. So that puts us kind of towards the Mayish period of 2023. And then I also looked at, well, how much did the S&P fall in the following 6 months once Lehman hit? And it was about 40 to 45%, which puts us right around that 9,000-ish area, give or take. The 9,000 area also triggers a 10,000 break, which will stop out a lot of weak hands. Like there's going to be, bottoms in markets are put in when one of the things we can see here is that this is the Bitcoin high from 2017 right here. And what you can see is you had these big drops, and then we kind of bottomed out, we went flat. And then right here, what's fascinating about this is that right here, we started to kind of have this very quiet, initially it was a bigger pop, and then a smaller pop, and then we went to sleep, right? So what's fascinating here is from here, so this was June of 18, and this was November of 18. In November of 18, we had this break.
With Bitcoin hovering around $16,000 to $17,000 after the recent events, people are still wondering what will happen next. Will it be able to recover soon, or is it going to consolidate for a while before flushing down the weak hands? In today's video, we will have Gareth Soloway, a fan favorite in the channel, make a new Bitcoin price prediction. Gareth's popularity has been increasing fast on YouTube since he predicted Bitcoin's drop after the 60K high. At that time, no one believed him, but he was right. A few months ago, he made a new prediction on how Bitcoin was going back to 20,000, and people still called him crazy. With BTC dropping even more, Gareth will explain what's happening next and what you should be doing to profit from these moves while still protecting your money. So pay close attention until the end so you don't miss anything.
The exchanges are essentially the banks of the regular industry, right? That's where we put our money. That's where potentially we've been earning returns like 10% by staking. I mean, all these type of things going on in the crypto markets. And so there is a lot of similarities there. Interestingly enough, in 2008, we saw, following that collapse in the banking issues, we saw regulation called Dodd-Frank came out following the financial crisis. And here we are with issues that are probably going to bring forth regulation. So there's so many weird similarities between the 08 period and what's going on in crypto that you can't deny that there's probably some sort of, similarities here. We're getting close to the lows in crypto is that if you look here, right? So if we go to this chart, so this is the Terra Luna drop, right? So the Terra Luna drop occurred in June of 2022. Bitcoin was trading around 31,500. It bottomed out around 17,000 and change. It was about a 45% drop, right? And then if you look at the FTX drop, it went from 21,000 and change to basically 15 and change. That's about a 25% drop. And what's interesting about that is that if you look at this drop compared to this drop, this one, arguably the FTX collapse, it was actually worse than Terra Luna, right? In terms of people getting burned and everything like that. And so in theory, this one should be bigger. This one should have been a bigger percentage drop in crypto. The fact that it isn't is telling us that money is getting used to these bad headlines and they're okay with it. They're becoming, I shouldn't say they're okay with it, but they're getting used to it. It's becoming more like, okay, there's another collapse. It's not the end of the world for Bitcoin. And I think if that makes sense, if we see another collapse, in theory, it might only take us down 15 or 10%. And as you get down there, people just start to say, all right, listen, Bitcoin's going to survive. These bad actors are going to get flushed out. Let's start to buy down here versus just panicking and selling.
How long does it take to get to the bottom? And can we finally expect a flip in prices inside crypto?
Probably have not seen the impact of the last couple 75 basis point hikes in the economy, right? It takes 6 to 9 months for a one rate hike to filter fully into the economy. So I think the markets may be a little bit ahead of themselves here. But I do think that at least when you come to Bitcoin, you're in that final downward move. And again, it's been a long time since I've gotten even slightly bullish on Bitcoin, but I'm starting to get there. I still think it goes to 9,000, but I think that end is in sight. It's less than $7,000 away. I mean, percentage wise, it's big from here, But if if you were in at 68,000 or 69,000, it's dropped a lot. Now it just has a little bit left to go before I think you get that bottom. So it's kind of exciting to see, because I do think that 2023 is a year where crypto, well, at least Bitcoin and ETH flip to where they become that strategic safety hedge, right? So up until now, we know when the stock market falls, crypto generally falls, right? It's de-risking money coming out of risk assets. But I think there's a point coming up in the next year where you see a flippage where the economy will continue to sink, stocks will continue to sell off, Bitcoin starts to get a little bit of a surge.
Okay.
At some point in 2023, I expect it to basically, what you'll see, and what I'm expecting is all these rate hikes eventually by the mid portion of next year are filtered into the system. We'll be in a pretty nasty recession by that point, and recessions are going to be, this is going to be a different recession than anything we've seen in the past 15 years, right? Because in the past 15 plus years, anytime we got in a recession, the Fed printed us out. But now you have inflation that is far above what they want it to be. And so it's going to be really hard for them to print their way out of this. And what that's going to do is it's going to drive stock prices much lower, right? So you have a recession that keeps getting worse and worse and worse, which means corporate earnings are going to get worse and worse. Valuations on stocks have to come down even more. But there will be a point now where investors, and this is going to be coupled with transparency through regulation. Once you get regulation in the crypto space, big money is going to say, listen, I have to put money somewhere to work. Doesn't make sense in a bad recession to put it in stocks right now. Gold, yes. Silver, yes. And then also, I think Bitcoin starts to become a player here. And again, it has to be coordinated with transparency, though. We know from FTX, there were so many big money players that got screwed there. And there's no way big money is going near crypto until there's some sort of rules that these companies have to abide by. So you get transparency through regulation. You then see the economy get worse and worse in 2023. I think Bitcoin bottoms out around 9,000, and you start to actually head back up. I think that if you have to choose between a little over-regulation or no regulation at all, you choose a little over-regulation at this point, because it's just not, this is not a good environment in crypto where, investors have to pull their money off exchanges because they fear it's going to vanish tomorrow. That's not a healthy atmosphere for investors and for investing. So you have to go with that side. And my hope is that politicians, and I think a lot of them do, they realize how many jobs are associated with blockchain technology now. And I think you have to say that the popularity of crypto, even in this bear market, it's getting more and more popular. And that means votes, right? So if they push things too far, they might not get reelected. And I really hope that pressure brings forth the right amount of regulation.
So if regulation eventually comes in and markets finally understand how they should move, Gareth believes he has a proper prediction and thesis on the 9K Bitcoin and when the final flush out happens. Let's see what he has to say about this.
I'm looking now around 9,000. It's
9,000.
The kind of the signals I'm seeing out there are kind of pointing to 9,000. Some of the things that I'm looking at, and kind of some cool stuff, is that you see what happened with FTX, and the equivalent of that kind of happened in 2008 with the stock market with Lehman Brothers collapse. And what I did was I looked back at the S&P when Lehman collapsed. Lehman collapsed on September 15th of 2008, and it took about 5 to 6 months for the stock market to bottom after that occurred, right? So it was about 6 months of September, and we bottomed at the beginning of March 2009. And so that gives us a time period now. And this is what I've been kind of isolating down, like, when will crypto finally bottom out? So it looks like 6 months from about a week or two ago when FTX really started to collapse. So that puts us kind of towards the Mayish period of 2023. And then I also looked at, well, how much did the S&P fall in the following 6 months once Lehman hit? And it was about 40 to 45%, which puts us right around that 9,000-ish area, give or take. The 9,000 area also triggers a 10,000 break, which will stop out a lot of weak hands. Like there's going to be, bottoms in markets are put in when you freak out the maximum amount of people. And it makes sense that a break of that even number of 10,000 will really freak out a lot of people. And so that's likely where that final flush out occurs at that point. You have to look at this low. So right now we've held this low here on the chart, right? This was the FTX low. We tested it here and we've come up. So for me, that's a level I'm watching. I actually do think we break lower. One of the reasons why I think we break lower is that Bitcoin's been falling here, but the stock market's actually been rallying. If we go to the S&P 500 and we look at the SPX, you can see here that you've actually rallied up. So what is this? The reason why that's concerning is that if you're in the belief that the economy is going to get weaker, then the S&P is going to go lower. And the question is, if the S&P, let's say, drops another 20%, can crypto hold the line on the lows here, even though it hasn't even rallied much off the lows? And I would say in this environment where people are so scared, and if you see a big sell-off in the stock market, you'll likely see the Bitcoin chart break down again. And I also think that you just have levels now, right? I mean, if we look at the longer term chart, I mean, we haven't tested this pivot yet right here, which is around 13,000 or so. And that is a huge pivot of support, as is this one right here at around 12,000. And so I think that for the most part, now that we're below 20,000, which was that 2017 high, we're kind of in this no man's land until we get down to at least 12 to 13,000.
One question we regularly see in the comments on our channel and other crypto channels is how fast Bitcoin can drop. Will it consolidate for a couple of months and then suddenly drop? Or is the selling pressure so significant that buyers will lose slowly until we find the bottom? Let's see what Gareth has to say about this.
One of the things we can see here is that this is the Bitcoin high from 2017 right here. And what you can see is you had these big drops, and then we kind of bottomed out, we went flat. And then right here, what's fascinating about this is that right here, we started to kind of have this very quiet. Initially, it was a bigger pop, and then a smaller pop, and then we went to sleep, right? So what's fascinating here is from here, so this was June of 18, and this was November of 18. In November of 18, we had this breakdown here, which eventually took us to the lows, where we finally bottomed out on Bitcoin. Now, what's super intriguing to me about the confluence of these charts is that if we go, so remember, June of 18 to November of 18, if we go to the current period in Bitcoin, we have the same sort of thing where we have the low here. Let me put this in again. It was June, right? And guess where we broke down right here? We had a quiet period, right? So you had the same kind of initial up move, then a smaller one, and then flatlining, and then we broke down. So June to November, and then we broke down here. So I guess my point here is that if we go back to 2018, and let me go back here. So this is kind of where we are in the Bitcoin cycle right down here. You know, we've just broken down. I think that probably over the next few months, we actually go down more sharply once we break lower. But then you start putting in your bottom, and it probably needs a good 6 months of bottoming before we can start to bounce up a little bit.
And the last question for today. What does Bitcoin need to finally reach a 100K or even $1 million price target?
If we want Bitcoin to get to 100,000 or 500 or a million, you've got to have some big money in the mix. It's not going to happen by people buying 0.1 Bitcoins at a time, right? You need some bigger buyers out there. So I think that's the key, is that most bear markets are like this. They don't like reverse instantly back up. It takes some time. It takes some work. You have a lot of bears that are panicking while some bulls are now starting to accumulate. And that's what was going on down at the lows on that chart.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, is there any expert you would like us to bring to the channel? Let us know your opinion in the comments below. Thanks.